So you might have heard about this advertisement. It is an advertisement by Gillette razors, and I suppose, now that I think about it, you can't even really call it an advertisement, more as like a public message or an announcement of something, but it's called We Believe the Best Men Can Be. It is a short film, they call it. I didn't know short films were 1 minute and 48 seconds long, but apparently that counts as a short film. But needless to say, if you've heard about this, or if you've seen it, or if you've heard the controversy, it wasn't taken too well. If you can see down here at the bottom, 21,000 upvotes compared to 202,000 downvotes. 10 times. About almost as many downvotes as upvotes. Like, this is something that did not go very well. And I've seen people going like, the problem is worse than we thought. Good on you, Gillette. Like, clearly, you're saying, you're pointing out this problem, and a bunch of people are getting mad. Clearly, they're part of the problem. Well, the message, on its surface, is something that I think just about every human being can get behind, besides the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. It talks about, sexual harassment is bad, catcalling is bad. It talks about like bullying and being like, just bullying people. That is bad. Like, it makes good points. Like being it's just being the idea of like a jerk is what I've seen some people in the comments say. Like, everyone's against jerks. That's not something that you really have to pat yourself on the back when you announce, like, okay, everyone's against the things in this message, in this video. And yet you might be wondering, like, obviously, if everyone's against it, why is it so controversial? Well, it's because of what's implied by the message, what's implied behind it. It's the certain terminology they use, what they're trying to say. And that's one part of it. There's actually quite a few issues they have with it, which I'll go into in a minute. But the biggest thing is what they're implying behind the scenes. Because, again, everyone can get behind bullying, sexual harassment, all that. The men who do that are bad. They are jerks. They are horrible people. We can all get behind that. But then the next part is the solution. What do we do about it? Or correctly diagnosing the problem. And if you'll notice, if you watch the ad, again, I've left it in the description if you want to watch it. They point out things like, they say toxic masculinity. They talk about the Me Too movement, which apparently this was what it was most influenced on, like a commentary on Me Too. And they also talk about, like, they include Anna Kasparian, of all people, from the Young Turks, in, quick, like, news montage thing, which, that's another weird thing. It's like, of all the news montages, or all the people to represent that, why'd you pick someone like that has a specific political message? And that's the issue. We disagree with the political message behind it. The idea of, like, toxic masculinity, which, I've read a little bit on the people that advocate against toxic masculinity, and they misdiagnose it. They talk more about, like, toxic masculinity is all masculinity. That the aggressive nature of men is bad. Men don't talk about their feelings enough. Men are too competitive. Those kind of things. And they're completely misdiagnosing the problem. And you'll find that the people that really, like, the pro-masculinity people, the people that are like, we need masculine men, the people that really talk about that stuff and really put all kinds of time and effort and research and study into, like, what is masculinity kind of thing. Those, like, they point out, what they're advocating is the complete antithesis of sexual harassment and bullying and that. And that's usually what their goal is to make men more masculine so that they don't do these things. Like, this is not seen as masculine. The whole bullying and stuff like that's just seen as pathetic. That's not what they aim for. And it's the idea of changing men into something they're not, I guess. Which direction do you want to take men? Do you want them to be more confident, more masculine, like more, not necessarily confident, actually, but just more taking charge of their life, being in, like, not making excuses, standing up for yourself, that kind of thing. Or do you want to take men the other route of, like, talk about your feelings more, you need to be nice, like, generally what is pretty much taught in what I've seen a lot of psychology. Like, they'll talk about, how do we stop the male suicide rate from being so high? Well, clearly it's because men aren't talking about their feelings enough, and that means we need to get more men into therapy where they talk about their feelings. But if you look at, like, research, and what that actually says is, if you start polling men and you start really trying to probe and see what the problem is, you'll see that when it comes to, like, men should talk about their feelings more. That's not true. Like, if you try to throw men into therapy and ask them to talk about their feelings, they're like, this is the most boring thing ever. I do not care. I want to get out of here and do something better. Like, that's not a solution. And that's one of the biggest critics of Gillette razors, honestly, is that they're going into, they're implying, like, the whole toxic masculinity and Me Too thing. That's part of it. But overall, obviously, everyone is behind this message. Like, that's pretty much obvious. But another thing that I've seen, honestly, I suppose is more than the implicit message that people are upset about, is the talking down to their customers. That the point of a razor company is to make razors. The point of, any company is to make a product and specialize in that product and advertise your product. But that's not what is happening, obviously. Like, you'll notice in this video, they're not talking about razors. Like, I suppose they're using a few, like, metaphors, but they're not talking about razors. They're not advertising their razors. They're not, this isn't an ad to get you to buy their product. They're not focusing on their product. Like, the whole reason people buy Gillette razors is because they're voting with their dollars and saying, this is a good product. I want more of this good product. I want a better product. And that's not what's happening here. They're going into the culture war. And of all the things, too, like, I found some people saying, like, oh, they're going full culture warrior and that. They're throwing themselves in the culture war. And I was thinking, like, well, I doubt it. I doubt that Gillette Razors is really thinking about, like, about this from a culture war perspective. I really don't think they were thinking about throwing themselves in the ring with the culture war until I thought that until, hopefully this right one right here, I found this, which is linked in the description of the Gillette Razors video. This is their campaign, The Best Men Can Be. And I want to read through it. 30 years ago, we launched our The Best a Man Can Get tagline. Since then, it has been an aspirational statement reflecting standards that many men strive to achieve. But turn on the news today, and it's easy to believe that men are not at their best. Many find themselves at a crossroads, caught between the past and a new era of masculinity. Again, I'm not really sure exactly what that means. But generally, when they talk about the past of masculinity, they talk about aggressiveness. They talk about things that are all bad if not controlled, I guess is a good way to put when it comes to masculinity. Like, because masculinity in and of itself is more just an expression of testosterone. That's what masculinity is. What is influenced by testosterone? Testosterone makes people more confident. It makes people more aggressive. It makes people more competitive. Like, that's the essence of what it does. And it does plenty of other things, but that's the essence, like, personality-wise, I guess you can say. And when it comes to people that really promote masculinity, they're not talking about reckless aggressiveness, because obviously that is bad. Reckless, like domineering and competitiveness and stuff. What they're talking about is being in control of yourself. Like, that's what they influence. They say, be all of these things, like aggressive, competitive, like the things I just said 20 times already. They say, oh, be all those things, but control yourself, obviously. Like, don't pick on the little guy. Have respect, self-discipline, those kind of things. And when I see things like new era of masculinity, the only times I've seen terminology of like that is when they talk about, oh, we need to make men more like women, is essentially what they're saying. And I'm not like, that's not even much of a conspiracy theory. It's just, you read, that's what they say. That's what they're advocating for when people say new era masculinity. They're talking about, oh, like a kinder man. And kindness is a good thing. It's just understanding the nuance of it. While it is clear that changes are needed, where and how we can start to affect that change is less obvious for many. And when the changes needed seem so monumental, it can feel daunting to begin. So let's do it together. It's time we acknowledge that brands like ourselves play a role in influencing culture. Right there, that quote. I'm going to read it one more time. Evidence that they are looking at this from a culture war perspective. It's time we acknowledge that brands like ours play a role in influencing culture. Their goal is to influence culture here. And the strange thing is, it is part of Western culture. Like, masculinity is part of Western culture. Rape is bad is part of Western culture. Like, the things they're talking about that are bad in this video are pretty much universally accepted to be bad. Which makes me wonder, like, is there any positive coming out of this? Like, it's one thing to put across a good message, sure. But if the message is going out to if everyone that agrees with your message already follows it, and the people that disagree with your message aren't being convinced, then I have to wonder, like, what's the point? And as a company that encourages men to be their best, we have a responsibility to make sure we are promoting positive, attainable, inclusive, and healthy versions of what it means to be a man. With that in mind, we have spent the last few months taking a hard look at our past and coming communication and reflecting on the types of men and behaviors we want to celebrate. We're inviting all men along this journey with us to strive to be better, to make us better, and to help each other be better. See, that's a good message, actually, that last part there. And they're all just being a better man. And obviously better is very subjective, but you know what I mean. Better man in terms of masculinity. From today on, we pledge to actively challenge the stereotypes and expectations of what it means to be a man everywhere you see Gillette, which that's another thing that worries me. What's the stereotype and expectations of being a man? Well, I mean, it depends on the community you're part of, but from what I've seen, generally the expectations and stereotypes of a man is that he is confident, he takes control in a good way. Like whenever something is bad, he's the one that fixes the problem. Like he's all about fixing problems. He is the one that is physically fit, something that I need to work on. I wonder where, like, when I see them saying we're going to challenge the stereotypes, that's what concerns me. Because when I think stereotypes, I think doesn't talk about their feelings all the time and is more wants to just get things done than to really show the emotional side of them and stuff that kind of concerns me. In the ads we run, the images we publish to social media, the words we choose, and so much more. Was that a sentence? As part of the Best Men Can Be campaign, Gillette is committing to donate $1 million per year for the next 3 years to nonprofit organizations executing programs in the United States designed to inspire, educate, and help men of all ages achieve their personal best and become role models for the next generation. Something that everyone can get behind. Like, but what's the nuance? Like, what do they specifically mean by that? That's what I want to know. Our tagline needs to continue to inspire us all to be better every day and to help create a new standard for boys to admire and for men to achieve. Because the boys of today are the men of tomorrow. So, yeah, that's all good stuff. It's all good stuff that when I read the language behind it, I see. Maybe I'm just looking into this too hard, but there are certain subtleties, like the words I see, like that I pointed out throughout these paragraphs. There's a certain language that is only consistent with one political ideology that I think is wrong, that is going about things the wrong way. But they said our support, Boys and Girls Clubs of America. Now, I mean, I didn't spend that much time researching this organization. I just kind of looked at their mission statement and all that and was like, well, what do I think of it? Do I have their mission statement up? Yes, I did, or I don't. But their mission statement seems like a good thing. Like, it seems like a decent organization. Like, they have right here, youth are 38% more likely to believe that schoolwork is meaningful when they have an optimal club experience. Like, okay, like, those are things I can get behind. This organization does not seem expressly political. I could be wrong. But, like, just by reading through the language of their mission statement and that, they all seem pretty good. Like, it seems like a decent organization. It's not like a Soros-backed organization or anything. Now, I will show you their partners, the people that are, I guess, funding them. With what? This is the $5 million to $10 million bracket. I don't know if that means total. I guess that means total and not annually. I'm not sure. But you see a lot of organizations here that I know have specific political messages. Disney, Microsoft, Comcast, stuff like that. You have a lot of other, like, honestly, all the big corporations is what I see here. All the, pretty much, there's Google there. A lot of organizations that, it's just all the big ones. I don't see anything specifically ideological besides, like, media partners, Comcast, certain organizations like that I know have a political message. But I'll let you decide that there. There was I found this on the Daily Caller, a message put out by the company, or like an official statement on the ad, and they said, this is an important conversation happening, and as a company that encourages men to be their best, we feel compelled to both address it and take action of our own. It's a good thing that we can all get behind. We are taking a realistic look at what's happening today and aiming to inspire change by acknowledging that the old saying, boys will be boys, is not an excuse. We want to hold ourselves to a higher standard and hope all the men we serve will come along on that journey to find our best together. Now, I have to wonder, like, I mean, I haven't explored the entire world. I haven't been obviously, not every community is like mine. But the boys will be boys excuse is rather interesting because I've never heard anyone ever use that excuse for something bad. Like, maybe that's all over the place. I'm just going to plead ignorant on this. I have just saying it could be a thing, but I have never heard anyone ever use boys will be boys as an excuse. At least not, like, maybe that's something they said decades ago, and that's where they're getting that from. But I've never seen that excuse now for bad things that everyone can get behind. I've never seen that. And that is an issue to me. So again, it's something that everyone can get behind the message, but what is the message behind the message? And as they said in their statement, they're giving What, $1 million to nonprofit organizations? Well, I want to know what those organizations are. They didn't say. Maybe they haven't chosen yet. Are they ideological organizations? Are they decent organizations like something like Boy Scouts or something? That I can get behind. They seem to be a good like boys organization. But that's what I'm concerned about, the stuff behind this. Now, I did find there was actually another Gillette ad, which a bunch of people have downvoted, which is kind of dumb because I couldn't figure out why. I could not, in the comments section, find a single critical comment of this specific or this specific short film, as they call it, just on the other one. But this was one, I guess, their earliest short film. This is the first one, and I guess the one we're talking about now is the second one. But this one, I watched it, and it's a good message. It's a good, decent message about this guy that apparently is a football player for the Seattle Seahawks, Shaquem Griffin. Seemed like a good, wholesome message. Like, overall, there wasn't any kind of like, oh, toxic masculinity was bad. It was a good message that I thought was good. It wasn't even political or anything. It was just like, hey, here's this guy's story of working really hard, and I thought that was a good thing. But then, I mean, people were downvoting it just because of the first ad. But then you go back to the first ad, and it's just all people are angry about all kinds of stuff. That this is because this has been like a complete 180. People do not want to be talked down to, and that's what it seems like. Men, we can do better. I hate that because it's like, oh, men, we can do better. Yeah, well, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing. For the most part, you ask any men out there, you ask the vast majority of men, and they're like, yeah, all this stuff is bad. Harvey Weinstein is a scumbag, like terrible person. Anyone that like sexually harasses a woman, bad thing. Is it still pretty prevalent? Yeah, like it's stuff that does seem to be happening. It's just, we don't like, people don't like being talked down to. People don't like it when they're like, this is a problem with men and masculinity, which doesn't seem to be the case. Now, there was one comment I did want to read that I've actually found on a Facebook post. I can't even remember what Facebook post. But I want to read that someone actually left a comment that greatly explained, in response to someone saying, like, why are people all upset at this message? And I thought this was a very good way of pointing it. You are right that it's more about the implicit message than what they explicitly say. It contains a lot of truth, but they pollute that truth by getting political, and that taints the whole thing for a lot of people. For example, they could have made the commercial all about being the best a man can be without implicitly pointing fingers and bringing up Me Too, #MeToo, etc. A good message like that can stand on its own. Instead, it's presumptive and collectivist, and that rubs people the wrong way. The commercial acts like such bad behavior is commonplace, is self-evidently bad regardless of context, and persists either because so many men are doing it or because too few men are doing anything about it. Most of us don't need a lecture from a commercial how to behave properly, but they are providing said lecture regardless. Then having a clip from a far-left nut like Anna Kasparian, when there politicizes it further. Yeah, and that's something that I thought that was very well put. That explains the whole issue in a single comment that people have a problem with. Like, this is not Gillette's job. Like, it's so condescending, and you got to remember that companies, like, I'm someone that, like, I personally don't care if a company doesn't care about me. Like, I acknowledge that. I totally acknowledge that shareholders and big corporations don't care about me. Like, they don't know who I am. They don't care. And when I see people like that, people say things like, oh, this gives me the impression that the company doesn't care about me. It's like, well, I mean, when it comes to a big company, like, I don't expect them to care about me. I expect them to provide me with a good product. I expect them, or they expect me to give them money for their product, and that's pretty much it. Like, for the vast majority of like organizations that just produce good products, in the end, it's like, yeah, I don't blame a company for not caring about me. But then it goes the extra step of being condescending, of saying, like, yeah, man, come on, man, we can do better. Like, come on, guys, we can do better. And it seems like men are being talked down to in this video. And to give you a parallel, something like, because I've seen a lot of people be like, again, whatever the point behind it is, whatever the so-called, like, what they're implying behind it is, the point is, it's a good message. So why are people getting mad? Well, let's put it a way I kind of want to put it. Let's say they came out with another ad that said, like, women, we can do better. Women, stop being gold diggers. Women, stop nagging all the time. Like, women, like, be a better role model. Be good to your husband. Stop nagging. Those are all things we can get behind. Like, nobody likes a nag. Nobody likes nagging. We can all agree that is a bad thing. Nobody likes gold diggers either. Nobody likes that. But obviously, if you put out a message saying, like, women, we can do better, stop nagging, people are going to get mad, and I can hardly blame them. That is something that I would not blame people for getting mad about, because it seems like you're generalizing there. You're saying, like, women, stop nagging. Like, that's essentially the same thing that this message is saying, but overlap. Like, we all get that the things you are saying are bad are bad. We all get that. But it feels like we're being talked down to, or generalized, or like the commenter said, taking a collectivist approach of saying, like, men, this is our problem. And yeah, hopefully that explains it. Hopefully that just gives you an idea of why people are mad. And I think it's like a legitimate thing to be mad about. This is something that screwed up for Gillette. We don't want companies going like full culture warrior. Like, I don't like the idea that I don't like the idea that I'm giving a company money for a good product, and then they're using that money for a political agenda. I don't like when I spend and buy something, it's because I like the product, and I want the product to be better. Like, I want them to specialize in that product. I don't want them to do 50 other things, like other political agendas and giving money to this and that, and that's the problem today, is that companies are too political. You just have to, like, do what you do best, and that is make razors. But let me know what you think in the comments section. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe for more. Helps me out a lot. Subscribe button right down there. Not on this video, but on my video. And thanks for watching.